Well, good evening, scholars. A little bit delayed, but here's my video response to the Passing of Grandison. First of all, in Joe Lynn's thread, I thought it was interesting that Marta and she got into a discussion about whether or not the stereotype was broken or kept in place with Colonel Owens. And that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because certainly he's lost his power, and that idea of him being completely in control has been broken. But in his own mind, he sort of clings to the idea that certainly the abolitionists or somebody must have had a hand in this. Like, he can't really buy into that he was duped by Grandison. So I think that's still debatable, and that was a really interesting discussion. I liked that Marta brought up in her thread the idea of ironic reversal, which is an important concept in African American realism, so you might want to go back and review that, but Marta had brought that up, and that was a good point. I loved Anna's piece about Charity Lomax and how, I will quote what Anna said, the hollowness of the ideology of the purity of the Southern womanhood. How Charity is an ironic name, and how Chestnut is commenting on the shallowness and the emptiness of this. You know, Liz Knapp asked, what do you mean by that? And nobody ever answered her back. And I would have liked to have seen a little more discussion of that. But some others of you discussed Charity Lomax, and I think you get the idea that, you know, she is a stereotypical shallow, just sort of for appearances. You got to have certain things in place in order to marry well. And money wasn't enough. He had to sort of have a name for himself as well, because she didn't want to be married to a ne'er-do-well. I really like that Liz, in her post, made a connection between Editha and Charity Lomax. So that was really a great thing. I love when you make connections between things that you're reading. Christy McNeil's post was outstanding in that it summarized the subterfuge of all the characters and the masks that they all wear and the relationship among them. So that was just sort of a nice overview, and I really like that. You might just want to go ahead and look at Christy McNeil's post. Sierra's Hidden Stereotypes post was also good. It might be one that you would like to review. I like that Brittany, although I would have liked to have seen more, but I like that Brittany touches on, really by bringing up the beginning and the whole fellow who was imprisoned and eventually lost his life for trying to help the slaves. That's the abolitionist stereotype that no one talked about too much. Rachel references Colonel Owens thinking about the abolitionists, but you know, there's a stereotype there. You either have sort of like the Hallmark made-for-TV movie, kind and gentle, risking their lives and family to harbor, you know, the fugitive slaves. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you have these violent, radical, at all costs, you know, they're going to break, you know, the Southern plantation system and hierarchy, and they're going to free the slaves come what may. So you got those kind of stereotypes working, and they're both sort of at play in that story. And I wouldn't have minded hearing a little discussion of that. It's kind of interesting because that is a stereotype. Kind of like Native Americans, you know, it's either the peace-loving, nature-loving, you know, persona, or it's the violent savages who, you know, so it's the same kind of thing with the abolitionists. So just something I wanted to bring up. And I think that's about it. That was a very good discussion board, and I enjoyed it. I love the story. I think it's hilarious. I was duped the first time I read it completely by Grandison. He plays the role to the T. That ironic reversal. He dupes not only Colonel Owens but the rest of us. Some of you have self-reflected about your own buying into stereotypes thing from reading that story. I know Charlie did, and that was great. And I just was amused as could be in thinking about people reading that story during the time it was written. And okay, there's another cat. This one's not Chief. This is Thomas. But anyway, thinking about people reading, maybe who are buying into the plantation myth still, and then reading that story and being duped with the Colonel, and just wonder how they felt about that. That just kind of, for some reason, makes me very amused. So it's a great story, and you guys did a great job on the discussion board.